Hi, everybody. As DJ said, I'm Joe DeSalvo. I think I'll start with, since I'm introducing these two very important people in my life, I think I'll steal one of their lines right now. If you don't mind, this will just get comfortable. My introduction should only take an hour or so. As long as I've known Gerry, that's his A line. Um, so the other thing, the reason for the cards is I also need to acknowledge my mentor, Bob Braudis, who said always be prepared. So although I think by now I could do this without the cards, I'd like to impress my mentor. Um, I'm here tonight to introduce two people that had an absolutely profound influence on my life. Um, as I said, and as well as Hunter. Hunter had an effect on my life, and I'll say in a few minutes that I still don't even understand why or how it affected me or how it affected my thinking. But somehow it infiltrated my brain. I started my law enforcement career here in Aspen in 1985 after 5 years of being a ski bum. I was an absolute horrible student in high school, never made it to college. I really believe if not for a sense of humor and some athletic ability, I would probably still be in the 12th grade today. But I moved to Aspen and I found that I got one of the best educations I could ever ask for. And that education took place on couches in Bob's office. And I think over our 24 years together, Bob, we went through 3 couches. And on those couches was where my education took place. I was fortunate enough to sit on those couches and listen to Bob and Gerry and Hunter and heroes like Monty Chitty, Hal Haddon, Ed Bastian, Pamela Mackey, and Keith Stroup, who taught me a lot. And the conversations were mostly about our Constitution, our liberties, our fundamental freedoms, drug legalization, and the death penalty. This was my college, and I practically got a law degree from it. And it was free. In fact, I was getting paid to sit and listen to these unbelievable thinkers. So my job tonight is to introduce these enlightened thinkers, earth movers and shakers. Both are my mentors, my brothers. We've been through a lot of shit together, and I lumped them in as a trilogy with Hunter because I think we all took and gave a lot of shit because of Hunter. And I'd like to introduce Bob Braudis, who in my opinion is the standard bearer for community policing. Community policing has lost its identity. Community policing means the police should reflect the community. And that's what we don't have in this country today. Commuting police officers are not what we need. Anyway, Bob was Hunter's friend and confidant. As sheriff, Hunter could be a high-maintenance friend. His idea of mischief was usually a felony in Colorado. So you could see how this relationship between sheriff and outlaw was conflicted. I'd like to introduce Gerry Goldstein, please. In my opinion, Gerry is a brilliant legal mind who's dedicated a lot of his work to the Innocence Project, which means getting people who are serving life sentences and even on death row out of jail for crimes they didn't commit. Hunter and Gerry and Bob worked closely on a famous Colorado case involving a young lady named Lisa Allman, who spent way too long in jail for a crime she didn't commit. She wrote a letter to Hunter about a book she had read of his, and it inspired Hunter to see what he could do to get out of jail. Years later, Gerry, Bob, Warren Zevon, Hunter, and a few notable others set Liesel free, and today she walks free amongst us. I hope you get into that, Gerry, because I think that's an interesting story about the softer side of Hunter. As for Hunter and I, Hunter had some very sharp edges and equally sharp tongue that at times could be somewhat hurtful. However, to me and my family, he was always a Kentucky gentleman, as he was to Bob and Gerry. I think he knew that any one of us could fuck with him and change his life at any moment, and that's why he gave us the respect that we got. Hunter was fun, and at times was very difficult. We were all there the night Hunter left this earth, and it too has affected me deeply over the years, but I can't figure out why. On that upbeat note, I think I will introduce my friends, my mentors, my brothers, my confidants. They suffer, we cry, we laugh together. Bob Braudis and Gerry Goldstein. Thank you.
Yeah, Joey. I got it. Oh shit, I can't talk to him.
Okay. Joey took up 90% of our stories.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me do my introduction. The reason that we're all here tonight is because of three people, I feel. Tom Benton, the artist in the little gallery on the left, Hunter Thompson on the right, and DJ Watkins, the curator.
Let's hear it for DJ.
He brought Tom Benton back to life with his book on artists and activists, won the Colorado Book Award. Then he wrote Freak Power with Ajax, the local sculptress. She is so creative. Hi, Ajax. And we can talk about that three people, but tonight we're going to talk about lawyers, guns, and money.
That's some shit.
The gun story that Joey alluded to had to do with Hunter shooting his assistant, his confidant, his longtime girl Friday, Deborah.
I promised Christina we wouldn't go into that.
You did?
You mean when the buckshot? Okay, never mind. I'd go ahead. I. By the way, I think.
Well, wait a minute. I'll let Gerry dominate.
No, of course, but he shouldn't. No, I think we should. Now that we've brought it up.
All right, we got other guns.
No, but tell him about when Deborah had to pluck the buckshot out of her ass.
No, Joey started it, and I'm not going to finish it.
No,
Let me talk
about
the other gun story. On the right, as you go into the small gallery, there's a sort of an early Photoshop of Hunter shooting a rabid porcupine. The bottom story is one night I was going home from work, driving by the Woody Creek Tavern, and if Hunter was up, he'd usually call me and say, stop in, or if he was home, he'd ask me to stop at the house. And on this night, I told him that Floyd Watkins, one of his neighbors, had complained about a whole bunch of things, and Hunter grinned like a Cheshire cat. And that night, he had a new girlfriend, he had a red convertible, and a machine gun. And he drove up to his neighbor Floyd Watkins' home and emptied a couple of clips, full automatic. Floyd and his son were waiting in their driveway. They came storming out in a black Suburban. Hunter was flying down the Woody Creek Road, and his girlfriend in the red convertible. Floyd and his son chasing him. He pulled into George Stranahan's driveway, 3 a.m. George wouldn't come out. His wife Patty came out and shooed Floyd Watkins away. All of a sudden, we had the district attorney and the ATF. Hunter's story was he had a rabid porcupine attack him, and he went full auto. the federal agents told us Hunter had a tax stamp for a machine gun. Then they came into town and told us they weren't supposed to tell us. And I said, what if you're on the witness stand? They said they would perjure themselves to keep their jobs. So we threw a local lawyer.
Wait. I thought that's how they kept their job.
Well, you would know better than I.
Sorry. I'm not.
I threw a local lawyer, Gerry Goldstein, into the case, and the district attorney was rabid, wanted Hunter to go to prison. But Goldstein worked out a plea bargain where Hunter had to surrender his World War II machine gun, sawed in half. So one day, Hunter went into the district attorney's office with a plastic bag with a machine gun in 2 pieces smeared with navel jelly. And I hope it's still in the evidence locker somewhere, Joey. But that's the real story about the rabid porcupine. Gerry, would you like to talk about Lisa Allman?
Well, I think you could probably lay the predicate. Lisa Allman was a woman serving life without parole in Colorado for the murder of a police officer, a gentleman by the name of Vanderjet. Yeah. The murder occurred while, and there was no question that the officer was killed. And by the way, the person that killed him was killed as well. At the time of the death, Lisa was handcuffed behind her back in the back seat of a police car, a squad car. And under Colorado law, and the law in more than 20 states in the United States, she was convicted of murder under what's called, what's called the felony murder rule. And it's an arcane concept of transferred intent that if you commit a crime, you're responsible for all that happens as a result of that crime, including murder. Even if you didn't know the person, didn't want to hurt them, didn't have anything to do with killing them, but if that was the result of your crime, and by the way, it's not just during the crime, Lisa's crime against America, they got to hear this, because I think that's the most interesting part of it, and why it's weird, is that she had broken up with her boyfriend. They rented together an apartment in Denver, and they had been apart for several months, and she got some friends together, and she just wanted to get her personal effects. They were that was her crime. She went back to her former apartment, where she was paying half the rent with her boyfriend. Was actually on the lease. It was very interesting. And she got her property, which consisted of a broken tape recorder, tape player, and a snowboard. Unfortunately, one of the people that she had met, I think that day or the day before, was, probably the wrong person to pick to take to come get your stuff. The neighbor saw her and one other person and the person that was identifiable as somebody you wouldn't want breaking into a neighbor's apartment, and they called the police that someone was committing a burglary. The police came. This guy, they all jump into this guy's car, who she didn't even know. And they drive away, and the police chase them. And the chase ensues. She jumps out of the car. She's arrested. The assailant then keeps driving. They go into a dead-end apartment, and a shootout occurs between the unfortunate police officer, Vanderjet, who was just doing his job, and the assailant, and Matthew. Sorry, Matthew. Both of them were killed in the process. So, as in Texas, we always know, you then try the survivor. And unfortunately, that was Lisa Allman, who was handcuffed behind her back in the back seat of a police car. And under this arcane, comes from the common law, sorry, Chris, but it's the Brits that gave it to us. This was from a time in the 18th century when Great Britain had over 200 property crimes that you could get the death penalty for. And Great Britain outlawed the felony murder rule probably half a century ago. In any event, Liesel was convicted of the murder under the theory that it was a burglary for her to go into her boyfriend's now apartment to get her own property, and that she was an accessory after the fact because she was with this assailant that killed the police officer after she had jumped out of the car, risked her life to get away from this guy, and she's handcuffed at the time the crime occurs. And it's that kind of arcane concept that holds somebody criminally responsible. By the way, Liesel Allman was given life without parole. She was going to serve the rest of her life in prison for killing somebody she didn't know, she didn't want to kill, she had no intent to kill. Was terribly sorry about the whole thing. In any event, she wrote a letter to Hunter. And Hunter responded well to all of his friends, but he responded best, I think, to the feminine gender. No matter what age, no matter who they were, it didn't fucking matter. If they wanted him to help, and he stepped up to the plate. I will tell you this. He rallied all of us. And it wasn't an easy time for us to get excited about this. And we all came to Liesel's aid, and a challenge was made of the Colorado felony murder rule. And I'm going to let Bob tell, but you got to let me tell how it happened. We all ended up, and by the way, this is Hunter. You know, Hunter. We always think of Hunter. We talk about his guns and everything, but he was a peaceful, gentle person. Other than one time he shot Deborah by accident. But
we're not going to talk about that.
That's right. But it is important to understand that Hunter he did attract law enforcement, often for the wrong reason, but he understood social justice. He didn't mind putting his own life and liberty on the line when it came to seeking social justice. I'd love to see him today witnessing what's going on across this country because I think the way he rallied us on Liesel's behalf was unmerciful. And I can only tell you that we ended up at the Brown Palace Hotel in Denver for a rally. And we found ourselves in the green room in the basement of the state capitol about to go out to an organized rally to free Liesel Allman, who was serving the rest of her life in prison. He was there.
The night before.
Okay, well, I thought we weren't going to talk about that kind of shit.
Don't interrupt me anymore.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. I see you.
The night before, Gerry said he always wanted to speak, being introduced by Warren Zevon singing "Lawyers, Guns, and Money."
It's true.
And
I wanted to go to a courtroom. I'm sorry.
You're interrupting.
I am. It's true.
We were getting ready, and one of our friends, Wayne Ewing, was a great advance van. Warren Zevon said, I need like a boom box or something. You got it? No one had one, so Wayne went down to the parking structure and gave the parking guy $100 for his $19 boom box. And we rehearsed Lawyers of Guns and Money, and Gerry speaking on behalf of Liesel Allman. And during our speech rehearsals, Warren Zevon said, we also have to mention Officer Vanderjagt. And he was right. Anyway, Gerry came out and spoke to the crowd with Hunter and me and a few other people, and Warren Zevon playing Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
Yes.
Now, DJ asked me if I would talk about Hunter about a week ago, and I said sure. and Gerry drove by, and I said, "Hey, you want to do it?" And he said, "Yeah."
Duh.
So I have a whole bunch of stories about Hunter that we could share,
Good.
or little vignettes that no one's ever heard before that I could talk to you about. I was trying to think, what do people want to hear about Hunter? We knew him when he was a cogent journalist. I met him through reading Hell's Angels, and then moving here in '69, I read his articles in Rolling Stone, and then I saw his local campaign starting, and got to know him 50 years ago, and then hung with him rarely in the '70s, but I became a deputy sheriff in the year we had no snow, '76, '77, and I became a little more valuable as a friend of Hunter's. And in my first year as a baby deputy, Hunter and his wife Sandy were divorcing, and they got into a semi-violent feud over some speakers for his stereo system. She called 911. Sheriff Dick Keenis sent us out there, and whoever was in charge made us wear flak jackets because everyone was paranoid about Hunter. I got there and just sort of took the flak jacket off and walked up and sort of kept the peace. And as under Dick Keenis' policies and Hunter's philosophy, community policing, peace is our product, and peace sells very well here in Aspen. Business is good.
Here, here.
I could say Hunter was a really good friend, but being his friend and sheriff both at the same time was sometime walking a tightrope. I did have to lecture him. So as I was saying, we knew him when he was real sharp, and we knew him when the chemicals and everything else had taken over. And like good friends, we stuck with him. Gerry and I were often in the kitchen, where up until the days before he committed suicide, he was gambling. And football season, he liked to gamble on every play. I think he owed money when he committed suicide to Joey DeSalvo.
By the way, that is the only person that he owed money to. Hunter, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Hunter you would be there watching a game, and you never walked away with his money. No, because if he was way behind, it would be like, let's bet on which bird's going to fly off that line up there. You know, he would keep going. He understood that sooner or later he was going to take your money and then he'd quit. You know, he'd either go to bed, pass out, or he would threaten you with a weapon. Yeah.
A little vignette. Hunter had some major surgery in Vail.
Oh.
And he'd been in the hospital for quite a while when they finally got him
Detoxed.
physically detoxed. You're interrupting.
Sorry.
Feel free to interrupt her.
Thank you.
We weren't going to talk about detoxing.
Why would? Yeah, you're right. But why would they give me this bite? They know I'm going to interrupt us. Sorry.
Let me continue. So I went over to visit Hunter, and he'd been in the hospital for like 18 days, and they gave him a pass to go out in a wheelchair. I talked to the surgeon. He said, yeah, he's finally okay, but man, he was hard to get off of 32 different substances. As we're leaving on the wheelchair, a nurse pulls out a hypodermic and gives him a shot in the thigh. And I start pushing him out, and I said, what was that? And she goes, Thorazine. Well, it's an antipsychotic that every prison in this country used to give to every inmate because it made them like numb to the world. Anyway.
It was also a diagnostic tool.
I didn't know that, but I pushed Hunter to the first bar that had a wheelchair ramp. I switchbacked him up to the bar, pushed him in. He pulls out a pack of Dunhills that I brought him and a lighter, lights up a cigarette. Waiter comes over and said, "No smoke in here." I hold up a $20 bill. I said, "He hasn't had a cigarette in weeks." He looks around, grabs it, brings me an ashtray. Hunter orders a triple Chivas Regal on the rocks. And halfway through that, he starts nodding out. He's fucking falling asleep in the wheelchair. I find that the wheelchair has a seat belt. I cinch it up as he totally passes out, and I push him back to the hospital. And as I wheeled him past the nurse's station, I said, "Thanks a lot." That's one vignette.
Everybody's got a hospital story with Hunter. One time,
You could talk about.
well, no, I got a hospital story first.
Okay.
My wife, who's my bride of 50, almost 2 years, is back there, in one of the 5 or 7 times that she blew her knee out. I'm at the hospital with her in the emergency room, and I get a call from Hunter, and he says, "Meet me at the emergency room. Meet me at the emergency room." And as I'm hearing this the third time, I see the doors bang open, and there's Hunter with his leg in a wheelchair being rolled in. He says, "Well, fucking that's fast, Goldstein." It looked like his leg was about to be amputated. It had all these really purple veins that were coming out everywhere. And that was just where he had taken a Marks-a-Lot to mark the swelling, to see whether it was going down or up. So we've all got a hospital story. And I think my wife and he shared a nurse, and they were next door to each other. And Hunter, he could get drugs anywhere. A hospital's a good place to get your drugs. And so he was happy
Are
to
you
be
under
there.
oath?
This was a while back. Yeah, go ahead. That was my little hospital vignette. Anyway, can you
Okay, that's
imagine
your hospital vignette.
being rolled out at
Let
the
me-
hospital to with Hunter as your next door neighbor? That's a dangerous concept.
Don't drop the mic. Okay. No. I'm going to tell a little. Hunter was a perpetual joker like Joey, sort of the class clown. And he had a neighbor, Ed Bastion, Eddie.com, who was a Zen Buddhist, spiritual guy. And about every year, we'd be watching football, and Hunter would slap Ed Bastion on the cheek very hard and go, "That's the sound of one hand clapping." Then he would hand me a ballpoint pen and say, "Test drive this," and I'd push the button and get 50,000 volts in me. And he loved to pull tricks on people, but he was also very analytical. Shotgun golf, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but I would hit golf balls with a 9-iron, and as they flew, he would shoot at them with a shotgun. But nothing ever happened. So E equals MC squared. Hunter decided, with my help, to take a golf ball, tape it to a peacock plume, of which there were many around the house because he raised peacocks, tape it to a branch on a tree. So the golf ball was hanging there like it was on a string, and he'd get a distance away and shoot at it, and the ball didn't move, but it had little black pellet marks. The lead was hitting it, but the lead didn't have enough of momentum or velocity or both to move the golf ball. So we decided it was all bullshit. And one of the best stories that I remember, Joey was there. John Kerry was running for president, and he was coming here for a fundraiser up on Red Mountain, and Hunter was parked in his Jeep Wagoneer on the tarmac at the Aspen Airport, awaiting Kerry's arrival. Joey and I were there as backup to the Secret Service, and the plane was delayed for quite a while, and Hunter got out of his car and pulled out his big Kentucky dick in front of all the guys in black suits with the microphones and started urinating on the tarmac. And they all just turned their back like gentlemen. And then they came over with a bomb sniffing dog and a mirror. And Joey and I asked them to avoid his car.
Okay, I've got a.
Wait, I'm not done.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
We motorcade to Michael Goldberg's house where the fundraiser is. And as Carrie and Hunter and I and Joey get there in front of all of the funders, John Kerry goes, "How about this, Vice President Hunter S. Thompson?" And everyone clapped. Okay, Joey, you're on. Jerry, you're on.
No, I had a peacock and airplane story. One time, Hunter was going to speak at is it Colorado State in Fort Collins? Yeah, and I was going to San Francisco with my bride, and Hunter wanted to come along for the ride, and then he could stop there, and we were going to send the plane back to Aspen. We were going to go on to San Francisco. So we go with Hunter, and of course the speech was a fiasco. Bomb threats. He had used a fire extinguisher that was on stage and sprayed it on the audience, and the speech didn't go so hot. So we take the plane on to San Francisco, and by this time it's the next morning, and I land, and I've got a call on my phone. It was when we had cell phones, but they were monsters at the time, and it was from the DA of whatever county that is. I think it starts with an R. Fort Collins, Larimer. Yeah, and he said, "Look, we've got a squad car on the runway, and the plane's not taking off unless either someone pays for the end table from the Holiday Inn where Hunter spent the night before, or he returns the end table." And by the way, for those of you who haven't been in the kitchen, it's still the end table in the kitchen, and yours truly got suckered into paying for the end table so the plane could return. And about an hour later, we get a call from David Gray, who happened to be the pilot of this little King Air, and he says, "We're not taking fucking off with your friend. He's released the peacocks in the cabin, and they're shitting all over everything, including the cockpit." So that's a peacock airplane story.
Okay, we sort of covered lawyers and guns. I got a brief money story. I was with Hunter, Johnny Depp in Louisville, where they were giving Hunter the key to the city. And we had a team. The mayor of Louisville refused to give Hunter the key to the city, so they found the ex-mayor, who is now working in Washington, D.C.
As a bellman.
No, he was working for Mayor Marion Barry.
Yes. The bitch lied.
Marion Barry got busted for crack and prostitutes. But anyway, he was a health commissioner for D.C. and the ex-mayor of Louisville, and he was giving Hunter the key because the real mayor wouldn't. It was in some auditorium with 2,000 seats, sold out. Zevon was singing. Juan Thompson and I were speaking. And the sponsor was a poetry professor at the university. And in the back room, the green room or whatever you call it, Hunter had his bag where everything he owned traveling with him, cocaine grinders, cocaine, various other substances, and whatever cash he had. And that was sort of always something he kept his eye on. And the auditorium was filling, and Hunter said to the sponsor, the poetry professor, "I'm not going on until I have $10,000 in cash." And he said, "Whoa." Hunter said to me, "Go tell the guys selling tickets that I need a brown bag with $10,000 in it." or I'm not going on stage. So I go up to the entrance of this auditorium. The guy's selling tickets for cash, and the cash is in a cigar box. And I say to him, I'm not used to doing this, but if you don't put all that cash in this bag right now, there's going to be no show. I took it back. Hunter came on stage. It was a big success. The next day, I was traveling with Hunter and the two co-eds that he demanded accompany him, and he wanted to buy a bullwhip. So we stopped at a leather store. He tried out bullwhips. None of them felt good. But the girls were trying on leather jackets. He bought them each nice leather jackets, and then he bought a bunch of riding crops, and he spent half of the money right there in the leather store. When he was broke, but when he was in the dough, he was Santa Claus. Just like DJ.
Yes. And let's have a hand for DJ. I think we need that.
No, I think we're done unless there are questions.
Okay, only one story. And by the way, I think Bob ought to tell his trip to Louisville with Hunter. That's an important part of your life. And you didn't go to Louisville with Hunter?
I just told that story.
Oh, that was in Louisville?
Yeah.
Well, I knew it was Louisville, Mary. By the way, we're both Kentucky colonels, so we know about this shit. No, there was a wonderful Inuit and Eskimo young lady. They're always young ladies, aren't they? And she had gotten in trouble. I love this. She had gotten in trouble. She was charged with assault on a peace officer, which Colorado, as many states, takes very seriously. She had, I love it. She had come from Red Rocks, where she was at this is a real concert. She had been at a Red Rocks concert and had hitchhiked with these guys that were going to take her back to Aspen. And they stopped at a filling station. She went in the restroom, and they left with all of her bags and everything. And so she calls the cops. And the cops come, and this is in Leadville. Jessica Barron. And they come, and she reports all of her stolen goods. And instead of going after the folks that had robbed her, they wanted to see in her knapsack that she still had with her, and they found some mushrooms. And it was a big deal then in Leadville. So Hunter convinces dumb shit, me, to represent her. And was it you that let her? She was on special release with, I think, were you with us?
She assaulted one of my deputies.
Well, I'm sorry about that. But in any event, she flies with us to Leadville, and Hunter is wearing this hockey goalie mask. All right, and he's got a .357 Magnum strapped to his side, and we're going into the Leadville. It's, the county courthouse, and I'm thinking, shit, man, we're all going to jail. And she's going to get us out. Anyway, we were lucky, and we got her out, and Hunter was very happy. She was very happy. Anyway, I'd become president of this national organization of criminal defense lawyers, and we're having a meeting in Santa Fe. So Hunter wants to come with us, and we fly there, and I get there, and I go to my room. Chris and I had something to do, and I go to my room, and there are bundles of roses covering the entire room, with a beautiful note from Jessie, thanking me for being her lawyer. And I'm feeling kind of puffed up and proud, and I go to the room next to me. It's a friend of mine, and fucking he's got roses everywhere. And then I go to the next room. It was a convention of lawyers. It was the legal committee for Normal, and they've got fucking flowers all over the room. And so I go back to my room and I call the one of those nice hotels in Santa Fe, and I called and said, "Do you have a florist?" "Oh yes, sir, Mr. Goldstein, but we don't have any more roses. You've actually bought all." I said, "What do you mean me?" That was his sense of humor. I had spent more money on roses than I have in our entire 52 years of marriage. Sorry, 51 years. And Hunter managed to accomplish that for me. That was part of his money, guns, and roses.
Yeah, I just want to say that Hunter trusted two people, me and Gerry, sometimes. And when Hunter got into trouble, which was often, the first person he called was Gerry, the second one was me. And part of our job was to protect artists. Warren Zevon said that many artists take their illusions and express them. As a singer and a songwriter, he did it in his words. Ajax may be taking her illusions through her sculptures. Tom Benton, he was doing illusions since the day he was born. But anyway, thanks for listening, and thanks for DJ and his team, and his movie Freak Power. His movie Freak Power is award-winning because of his team. And just like Trump recognizes all his sycophants, I'm going to recognize Mimi and Richard. They are DJ's Hollywood connection, and Ajax is somewhere around here. Anyway, as I said, the rubber meets the road and the people you work with. My deputies made me look good. All these people work with DJ very well. Thanks, DJ.
Yeah, and I just want to say briefly that these two gentlemen here have been heroes of mine for the 10 years that I've known them, and I couldn't ask for better role models and better friends and better confidants. And so I love you guys so much for being here.
That's the first bullshit you heard today.
And we also want to say that we're so lucky to be here in Aspen and so lucky to be here tonight. We're going to ask everyone to just please practice social distancing. If you're not wearing a mask, ask us. We have some extras. We want to be very careful here. We also want you to enjoy the art and enjoy the great music that we've got. Presents. And where's the third member? Okay, cool. We're gonna play some music. We're gonna enjoy ourselves, and we're gonna enjoy this great community we have. And thank you again.